This is the Niche Zero. It's a conical burr grinder that has risen in popularity to become the gold standard and benchmark of price to performance with a very enjoyable single dosing workflow for the average home barista. But more and more, people are starting to gear towards flat burr grinders like the Eureka Mignon line, Lagom P64, and even much more budget options like the DF64 line. So with so many flat burr options quickly becoming the norm, what if you could take the Niche Zero and everything that people love about this grinder and convert it into a flat burr grinder? Well, that's what this Frankenstein is. I have a flat burr conversion kit for the Niche Zero by Sworksdesign. Now, as a disclaimer, I did purchase this kit by myself for the full price from Sworksdesign, and it was not gifted or discounted in any way. And this kit was not cheap. I purchased a 54mm flat burr conversion kit for about $250, and there are also options for 58 and 60mm flat burrs. Now, that effectively turns what is roughly a $650 grinder after shipping to the US to now like a $900 grinder, which is a lot of money. Luckily, this video does have a sponsor, and that is Cliff & Pebble, but more on them later. So the installation process for the kit is extremely simple. You basically take apart the grinder as if you were going to clean it. So that means you remove the dial ring and all the parts inside, including the old conical burrs. After doing a deep clean, reassembly is very easy. You'll reuse the anti-popcorning piece as well as the piece that sort of centers everything together, and of course, the bolt. Now, in the installation guide from Sworksdesign, it does mention to optionally add a few layers of thread sealing tape to the dial ring, but I don't have that one on hand, so I didn't use it. Once everything is assembled, you're good to go. Now, I did calibrate this as you normally would by twisting that ring until it's hand tight, and then aligning the little calibration notch with the calibration notch on the ring itself. Now, to get to an espresso fine grind, normally I'm within that sort of 10 to 15-ish range on the Niche when it had its conical burrs in, but here I'm practically back at the hinge. So to compensate for that, I simply rotated that dial ring back to align at the roughly 15-ish mark, but that's just something I thought I'd note because it kind of does limit your range here. Now, before getting into the actual results about this flat burr conversion, I will note that I have basically exclusively used the Niche over the last few years for espresso, even with the conical burrs installed. These are also 54mm FEMA FMPN espresso focused burrs that are pretty inexpensive. And I have been told by Sheldon at Sworksdesign that he is designing some other burrs of different geometries, like a Cast Lab Suite style, so it'll be interesting to compare those in the future. Okay, so first let's talk about some of the actual performance of the newly modded grinder. Retention here remains good. After some bellowing and or smacking the top like I usually would, I was often getting exactly what I put in, or at least within 0.1 to 0.2 grams within that range. Now, initially grinding for espresso seemed to feel longer than what I was used to with the conical burrs, but the difference actually wasn't all that much, and it still took roughly 30 to 40 seconds for an 18-gram dose at an espresso fine grind. Now, this is going to be a little bit slower than a lot of other flat burr grinders out there because the Niche does run at a pretty low 400-ish RPM, yet despite that, even testing some really light roast, it never stalled. Now, with regards to taste, I'm going to try to answer two questions here. Firstly, how does it compare to a stock Niche Zero with the original conical burrs? And second, how does it compare to something like this? This is the Eureka Mignon Zero. It's a $500 55mm flat burr grinder with an oddly similar name. Okay, so for espresso, it's good. Is it better than the stock Niche? No, but it is different, and that's sort of the point of comparing conical burrs to flat burrs. One or the other might not necessarily be better, just different, and you might have a preference one way or the other. Now, with the beans I've been using for the past few weeks for espresso, I've been able to pull out a little bit more acidity from them with the flat burrs and got a little bit of a lighter body compared to the shots I was pulling previously with the conicals installed in the Niche. Is it like a huge, stark, night and day sort of difference compared to grinding on something like maybe a massive 83mm flat burr grinder like the DF83? No. But it's different enough to compare and identify some characteristics between conicals and flat burrs. And secondly, how does it compare to this, a 55mm flat burr grinder that's nearly half the price when you consider this all the parts put together? Now, personally, I've been enjoying the results I've been getting from this flat burr grinder a little bit more than the flat burr Niche. This grinder, of course, has some of its own quirks, like it's a little bit difficult to align this bellows system here at the top, but for 500 bucks, it's still a really good performing flat burr grinder for espresso. And it does sit somewhere in the middle of the Eureka Mignon line, priced a little bit above a Silenzio, but a little bit below something like a Specialita. Now, luckily, if you don't have $900 to spend on a new Niche Zero in flat burr conversion kit, Cliff & Pebble has got you covered. If you're in the market for your first or next espresso machine, grinder, or coffee accessory, be sure to check out Cliff & Pebble. The Chicago-based team has a huge selection of machines from some of your favorite brands, including Rocket, Lelite, Eureka, Baratza, and more, and they provide excellent pre- and post-purchase service, so you can be rest assured in knowing that they'll help you out with all of your coffee brewing endeavors. So once again, thanks to Cliff and Pebble for sponsoring this video, and be sure to check them out with the link in the description down below. Okay, so to answer the question to sum up this video, is it worth it, and who's it for? Now, this Frankenstein grinder, without the cosmetic changes I have here, is in and of itself definitely not worth $900. If you want a flatbread grinder in that range, my top pick would probably be the DF83 right now at $700, or save a few more $100 and go for the Eureka Mignon Zero, or save even more money and go for something like a DF64 with some mods and it'll be very capable. So even the niche today stock with its conical burrs looks less and less like the standard for price to performance. While still maintaining a very enjoyable and easy workflow, there are just so many new budget options today that have come out since the inception of the niche. And unless niche can either drop in price or come out with something new, I feel like they're soon going to be priced out of the market and is no longer the easy go-to option for the average home barista. But who is the flatbread conversion kit for specifically? It's kind of hard to say. I think that if you already have a niche and you want to experiment with flatbreads and don't have the space to maybe flat out buy another grinder, then this might be a viable option at $250. You do keep the great workflow of the grinder while getting to try out a flatbread profile. But for another $100 to maybe $150, you can straight up get something like a DF64 with much larger 64mm flat burrs that might be a better representation of comparing conicals to flat burrs. My friend Brian does have a great video that goes in depth on why the niche and DF64 are his favorite combination of grinders to discover your own personal preferences, and I'll link that in the description down below. But anyway, those are going to be my thoughts on this unique flat burr conversion kit for the Niche Zero. It's a very unique invention by Sheldon at Sworksdesign for sure. It is on the pricier side, but again, it's for like a very small subsect of people with a niche to begin with. So as always, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one.